What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today I have a comparison video between the Nike Vapor 15 and the new Adidas F50. Now it's always a battle between these two, the Vapor and the F50, or the X as it was before, but the battle of the speed boots, like which one's better, Nike or Adidas. Now today I'm just going to be comparing both of these boots and try to help you decide which one to get. Also, I would like to say that the new Vapor 16 is coming out. I'm not exactly sure when. I believe probably in the summer towards the end of the Euros. Nike have already shown the boot, but they haven't really talked about the boot itself. But we do know that the Vapor 16 is coming. So when that boot comes out, I'll probably will do a review and we'll do another comparison. But for now, if you guys are looking to get new boots and not sure to decide for the F50 or the Vapor 15, I'll just do my best to compare both of these so you guys can decide which one to get. Alright, so first we'll talk about the upper. Now the upper on the Vapor 15 is a Vapor Posit Plus upper. And this upper is pretty soft, pretty pliable. It is pretty thin. It does have this internal mesh liner that gives it just a little bit of sponginess maybe, but it's so minimal. But you do feel it with your finger, not so much on feet, but it is pretty thin. It is on the thinner side, and this one is pliable. You guys can see it's nice, pliable, pretty soft on feet. And I feel like this Vapor, because of the upper, it's just very comfortable. It just fits really well also. So now with the Adidas, it does have a Fiber Touch upper, and this upper is also pretty thin and pliable. I would say that they're pretty similar in terms of pliability and softness. Maybe the Vapor 15 is just slightly softer, and that can be just because I have had this boot longer and I have worn it more compared to the F50. This one maybe I have 2 days of wearing it, so maybe it will get softer as I play with them, but for the most part they're pretty similar. I'll just give the edge to the Vapor 15. But again, this upper is just nice and soft, really comfortable on feet. It is on the thinner side, but I feel like it's slightly thicker than this boot, like the upper on the Vapor 15. The Adidas F50 is slightly thicker, but you still will get that barefoot touch on the ball, but just has a little bit more thickness to the upper. Honestly, I don't mind. It still feels pretty good on feet. In terms of the upper, this boot also has this sprint whip texture. You guys can hear it. It's pretty gritty, and this is actually pretty noticeable when you're dribbling, not so much when you're shooting. I found when I was dribbling, it did grip the ball a little bit more, and otherwise it would just be slick. And with the Vapor 15, you don't have any texture. You guys can see this, these lines here, and you could kind of hear it, but for the most part, you don't really notice it. It doesn't provide extra grip. It doesn't feel too slick, which is nice, but the texture on the F50 does do a better job in terms of giving you a little bit more grip. But honestly, the Vapor 15 doesn't really feel slick at all either. So in terms of the fit, the Vapor 15 still fits like a Vapor. It is on the narrow side all throughout, especially here in the toe box. But I feel like compared to previous Vapors, it's not overly narrow this time around. There is a little bit more volume to the boot, and just they made it slightly wider so more people can fit into them. So for example, I do have a wider foot, and I'm able to fit in these pretty comfortably. They fit pretty nice. Yes, there are a tighter fit, but they're not really squeezing, they're not hurting my foot. They do have a tight wrap to it, but it's not hurting my foot whatsoever. And like I said before, because this upper is a lot more soft and pliable, it just it fits really great. With the Adidas F50, I feel like they kind of changed the shape compared to the Adidas X, and it kind of just made it a little bit more wider throughout. It's not an overly wide boot, but it is a little bit more comfortable compared to Adidas X in my opinion. I do have a wider foot, and these fit me just fine. Here in the lacing system, it just looks a little bit weird and it does flare out, but that's just the way the boot is. That doesn't really affect performance at all, and that's just the way it looks. Unfortunately, it does look kind of ugly, which kind of sucks, but it doesn't really affect performance at all. You still get a good amount of lockdown, so that doesn't really matter in my opinion. It's just the way it looks. But in terms of the fit, it fits really well. You do get a good amount of width here in the midfoot, as well here in this toe box area. And I feel like the toe box on the F50 is just slightly wider compared to the Vapor, and so my toes don't feel super tight or close together compared to the Vapor. They kind of are able to move around just a little bit more compared to the Vapor. So for me, I just find the F50 a little bit more comfortable just because it has a little bit more width to it, but you still get a nice close wrap to your foot, but not super tight compared to the Vapor 15. In the tongue here, we just have like knitted material, which is what we've seen from Nike before, and it just creates a one-piece upper, which does a good job of just holding like your midfoot and have more of a seamless sensation. And here on the Adidas F50, you have this compression tongue that is kind of this tunnel that kind of ends around here, and this kind of just like holds your foot in and kind of wraps it. It doesn't feel too tight just because it is stretchy, but you do have these like fused materials on the inside. You can see it right there. That doesn't allow it to overstretch, and so there is a little bit of tension, but for the most part, it doesn't really feel like it's squeezing your foot at all. It feels just a little snug, but honestly, after a while, you just don't notice it, and it feels normal. So it just helps with like the tongue not moving around, honestly. And this material is just very, very thin, so it doesn't provide any extra bulk around the boot, which I was worried about at first, but like I said before, you don't really feel it at all. In the heel, you guys can kind of see the difference that this one is a little bit narrower, and it kind of just hugs your heel a little bit better. You do get a good amount of padding here, and I feel like you have a good amount of heel lockdown. In the Vapor, it is a bit rounder. It still does a really good job of locking in your heel. You guys can see here there's padding all throughout, and there's a good amount of padding there, so it just locks in your heel really nicely. For me, I don't really have a preference of either one. Both of them are really good, and both of them like provide a good amount of structure and support in the heel, no slippage whatsoever. All right, so in terms of performance, I have worn the F50 like twice now, but I do have more time in the Vapor 15. But the Vapor 15, like the lockdown is very good in my opinion. You get a good amount of lockdown here in the midfoot, and it just feels very secure. It's probably has the most lockdown out of any boot right now, so that's really good. So if performance and lockdown is very important to you, then you should probably just consider getting the Vapor 15. The F50, on the other hand, it's still pretty good on lockdown. I didn't really find any rollover whatsoever, and it's better than the Adidas X Crazy Fast, but it's nothing crazy. It's nothing like super like locked in sensation. Like the upper is kind of soft, and the only like I guess support that you do have is this internal like compression fit tunnel, which honestly doesn't provide too much support. So in terms of like a locked in sensation in the midfoot, I'd probably give it to the Vapor 15, but this is still really good in my opinion. Like, I'm not saying that this is terrible and it has no structure whatsoever. It's still very good, but just comparing it to the Vapor 15, I just feel like this one just has a little bit more like structure in the midfoot. Alright, so now we'll talk about the sole plate, which is probably the biggest difference. And with the Vapor 15, I have talked about the sole plate before, the Air Zoom sole plate, the Air Zoom unit here in the forefoot, and I feel like this is just excellent. I really like the way it feels underfoot. It has like this nice bouncy sensation, and like this doesn't really have like an energy return feature. It's more like it just helps with like comfort. Like it doesn't feel any more like snapback at all. It doesn't provide you with an energy boost. It just feels really nice when you're running, and it just has like a nice soft feel underfoot, just like a running shoe. And so it's a very unique sensation to have on a boot, but it works well and it feels very nice underfoot. It's a unique sensation. And the stud pattern here is very aggressive. It has all these like triangle studs, and you guys have, pretty much traction in any direction. So this is a lot more aggressive compared to Adidas F50. The sole plate on the Adidas F50 kind of goes back to what we've seen from Adidas before with the one-piece sole plate and the external heel counter. And this sole plate is a lot more flat compared to the previous Adidas X. And this sole plate is still pretty responsive. It still has a good amount of flex, so it's like a nice in between. I actually really like the sole plate a lot. Do I like it more than the Vapor 15? I'm not sure. I really do like this Air Zoom unit on the forefoot, but this one just feels, I don't know, normal, I guess. So it just, I guess, depends on the preference that you like. The sole plate just feels a lot closer to the ground. And in terms of the stud pattern, this stud pattern is more like general. I feel like they tried going for a more general stud pattern. It's not super like aggressive or like speed focused. It's more like, you guys have these conical studs or half conical studs here, and these kind of allow you just to pivot and like twist and turn a little bit better. And then you do have these bladed studs here on the front of the boot as well in the back, so you still get a good amount of bite and traction. And so it's not as aggressive as the Vapor 15, but it still does a good job of giving you a good amount of traction. Overall, both these boots are excellent, and you can't go wrong with either one. If you want more of a tighter, more traditional speed boot vibe, go with the Vapor 15. If you want like a boot that's a little bit more comfortable and it isn't so tight fitting, go with the Adidas F50. But both of them, in my opinion, are great. Which one I would pick? Honestly, not sure. I really do like the Vapor 15, but the little time that I have worn the F50, I've really enjoyed it. So I just need a little bit more time with the F50 before I can make that decision. But I guess if I were to pick a boot for a game right now, I'd probably pick the Vapor 15. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you're notified for future videos. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.